Hi Gordon Milne. We are reaching out to you via Mr. Celal Soydan, the owner of Kazan Pub in Beşiktaş. And we pass you the greetings from him, and also greetings from Costa and the nephew Vangel. We are Beşiktaş Gelişim Grubu, Beşiktaş Development Group, established 15 years ago and organizing and supporting Beşiktaş, organizing meetings and supporting Beşiktaş. Beşiktaş. Also, we are organizing many talks with Ali Gültiken and Mehmet Özdilek, your students from your tenure. And we are very happy that we are here. I will start with the question that you have written a book, Shankly, My Dad and Me. We purchased the book and we request your autograph on these copies at the end of the interview. And would you please talk to us about this book and how it came about?
Well, first of all, hoş geldiniz. Nice to see you in my little den, my little office. The book, really, it's memories of my life, of course, but I had no real intention of doing that at the beginning. But I have here in my office, I have some books which are like diaries of my father. And my father played professional football, and he's been dead 20 years. And I used to look at those diaries, and I still do. And it still gave me pleasure reading these diaries. So I thought, well, I've got 3 sons, and maybe, you know, when I'm no longer here, maybe they could be interested in reading the diaries. Excuse me. But that developed into a book about my football life and starting as a player and finishing off as a trainer. So that was the motivation to do it.
Okay. And could you please also take us back to your football and managerial career prior to Beşiktaş? I mean, your football career preceding Beşiktaş.
Yeah, well, of course, you know, when I started as a young player, I was playing for my hometown, Preston North End. And I was a young player and came up through the ranks to play. And then in those days, when you got to, in England, you got to 21, you had to do your military service. So I had to go into the military at 21 for 2 years. So it was I was 23 when I came out, and that's when I signed for Liverpool. And obviously for me then, that was a big step to a big club, and eventually I had 7 years at Liverpool, and that was successful. We won the championship twice and the cup, so it was a great time. After Liverpool, I went to Blackpool, very close, for 2 years, and then I was getting to 32, 33. And I was thinking about the future, you're never sure, but I wanted to try and stay as a trainer, as a coach, a young coach. So I left Blackpool to go to Wigan Athletic. And in those days, Wigan were a non-league team. They were not in the Football League. So they were part-time players. And I was player coach. I started to coach, my first job as a young trainer. And started to coach and play, and I enjoyed it. It was a good experience for me, and that was the beginning. And then I also got the job to work with the England under 17 team at that time, and that was a big honour for me. And we won the championship in Barcelona with that group of players. And from that, there was sort of good reclam. I got good reclam. And I got the opportunity then to go to Coventry City, which was then in the first division. So from non-league football, I had a big jump to the big league. And I was there for 10 years. I'll shorten the story. And then I went to Leicester. I had 5 years at Leicester. And then on Dansona, as we say.
Yeah.
the world changed. Yes, evet.
When you chose to come to Beşiktaş from Leicester City, what were the factors impacting your decision to come to Beşiktaş, and how did it evolve?
Very simply, Bobby Robson was always a friend of mine, and at that time Bobby was the manager of England, and they were training in camp at a place called Lilleshall, which is not very far from here. And he telephoned me one day and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, nothing. I've just finished at Leicester City and I think I want a break. I want a little break, because I was thinking maybe to work next time, maybe I would like to work abroad." I wasn't sure, but I had this feeling of maybe I'd like to try working abroad. So he said, "Come over and watch the training and we'll have a talk." So I went to the camp and had a chat with Bobby after training. And Bobby explained to me that Don Howe, that was Bobby's assistant at that time with England, had been helping at Beşiktaş, and that was in between trainers, I think, and Don was helping. And he said, "Don is coming back tomorrow. I think they've offered him the job, but he doesn't want the job. He wants to stay with England. Would you want to come over and talk to Don?" So I knew Don, of course. So I went back and spoke to Don, and Don said, I can see him now telling me, enthusiastic, the Başkan, well, we called them then the president. The president is a good guy. The city is football crazy. The people are fantastic. They've got a nice stadium. The training facilities are not so good, but you know, everything's good. So, you know, I came home that night and thought about it, and then very quickly really decided, okay, maybe I'd like to go and talk to the committee. The following day I had a telephone call. The following afternoon I'm in Istanbul, and that evening I've signed a contract.
So Don has changed the history of Turkish football.
Yeah, so you know, you look in your life, you look back in your life and think there's sometimes are important times in your life that you would never anticipate. That was just a meeting with Don in 5 minutes, and it changed my life, my whole life, in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Perfect. Before you came to Turkey, had you guessed or seen the potential of such great achievements with Beşiktaş?
No, I knew nothing at all about Turkish football. You know, in those days, every year now for my Tartil holiday, I go to Turkey.
Yeah.
But in those days, nobody went to Turkey from England on holiday. You know, Turkey was like still the unknown, and so with regards to Turkish football, I didn't know anything. So other than what Don had told me about the club and the Başkan, that's all I knew. You know.
How could you describe Süleyman Seba as a club chairman and as a person?
Well, he was a special man. There's no question about that. And interesting, when I told you this story, Don Howe, his interpretation of the Başkan, you know, he said he's a top man, and he was responsible for me being able to do the job I did eventually, because his knowledge of football, he played for Beşiktaş, he understood footballers' problems, he understood coaches, trainers' problems, and obviously he knew all about committee and Başkan problems. So he knew the mechanics, he understood people and how people worked and the challenges that people had, and he had those principles, and those principles appealed to me because that's how I worked. I believed in having discipline and organisation and trying to play the correct way and trying to do the right things. So his whole personality kind of painted the picture really of what I was trying to do as a trainer, and he was just a special man. And I think at that time and always he was respected not only by all Beşiktaş fans, but all the Başkans from Fenerbahçe, Galatasaray, all football. They all respected Süleyman, and because he was a sort of man who, if anybody had a problem, you could go and talk to, and he'd be sympathetic to that, and he would offer good advice. He was a how do I say? For me, he was a father figure for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You won 3 championships with Beşiktaş. Which one do you consider or recall as the hardest?
Well, they were all hard to do. I think, looking back, I think maybe the first one, from my perspective, was most important, because I think I've been there 2 years, and first year nothing, second year we win the cup. So the third year, people are starting to ask questions and this and that, and what has the trainer done? And so winning it for the first time, from my view, was important. But it was also important that also for the players at that time, because that group of players, from day one, me working with them, were 100%. I never had any problems with any players at all, and they all worked hard. I had a different mentality to what they were used to. I was a stranger, they were local boys, and it takes time for you to get the confidence and working and get to know the characteristics of your players. And looking back, I think that was a special one. It was an important one. Having said that, you know, when you win 3, the one, of course, we win, we don't lose a game. That is a fantastic achievement for everybody concerned. And I think it's still there, that challenge. Yeah. Still a challenge for future Beşiktaş teams. So, of course, you get tremendous pride in that particular season. And the other thing at that time, of course, Fenerbahçe, Galatasaray, Trabzon all had very strong teams. You know, they were high quality teams. So you have to look at the whole picture really of the 3 seasons we did. Very difficult to.
Yeah. If there had been a 4th championship, what difference would it have made for Beşiktaş and you personally?
Well, it never happened, did it? It never happened. Unfortunately, when I left Beşiktaş to go to Japan, the Japanese season started halfway through the Turkish season, and that was no good for me. It was no good for Başkan, for Beşiktaş, but it was time for change, but it was the wrong time in the season. So would it have happened? Who knows?
Yeah, why do you think Beşiktaş couldn't reach the 4th championship?
I don't know, because excuse me, obviously I'd left that. It's a difficult thing to talk about because it didn't happen, and we parted at that time. Had we stayed together, I think we had the experience to do it, and I would have believed we could have done it, but you don't know. You know, it's an unanswered question, that one.
Galatasaray gained 4-1 in their ground, and the games can go on like that. So that was something different. You know, we know that. Yeah. It doesn't matter who's going to play. We know that at the end of the day, we're going to be the winner.
Yeah.
And the supporters, they were so had confidence in the team and you that even if the score was like 1-0 down or 0-0, whatever, we know that after 70, 75 minutes, we're going to be the one who's going to change it, turn it around.
Yeah.
And that always happened.
Yeah, it did. Well, it was, you know, the whole momentum, because the supporters are so important, you know, but the whole momentum got together and it was quite formidable, really, it was. Thanks, Ollie. Is that mine?
Well, sir, if 2 high-profile transfers had been made during your time at Beşiktaş, considering the conditions of the period, do you think things would have been significantly different? And did you ever come up with such a request to the president and the board?
No, I think I think my mentality when I went to Turkey, and I was very strict with myself on this, was that I was a stranger, right? And in those days, there was very few yabancı players, not like today. So the majority, well, all the team at that time were Turkish. All the staff were Turkish. Everybody was Turkish. I am the stranger. So I have to change. Not my football mentality, but the rest. So I was determined to succeed with the players that we had, the Turkish players. Later on, we made little transfers with players I knew. Walsh and Wilson came from England. Ferdinand came. 1 or 2 more. But if you look at the character of the team, it was basically Turkish players. And there was never, I never asked Başkan for money for a player that he refused. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. So in a way, Başkan didn't have that problem because I was determined that, and we had good players. So I'm looking, we have good players here. It's my job to get them organised and play as a team. So that was the challenge, and that was my mentality at that time.
And another question, sir. Even during the peak form, Metin Ali Feyyaz never had a single chance to play together in the national team. Mehmet was also on the bench during the periods when he was dominating the league. Don't you find this odd and strange?
Well, all you can think now to try and answer that question is that had those boys been playing today, Beşiktaş would find it very difficult to keep them at the club because Europe would have been where they would have gone. So we had a lot of players with that capability. But at that time, that wasn't the case. Countries weren't coming to Turkey to look for players. Thankfully, it allowed me to keep those boys and keep them together. With reference to the milli takım, I was quite pleased that, you know, too many didn't get selected for the milli takım because it kept them fresh for Beşiktaş, you know. So that was my selfish mentality. The boys were worried and upset, but no, I wasn't too worried. So that was never a problem really. But they all obviously had the ability to play at that level. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. You spent 7 years in Beşiktaş, undoubtedly with lots of memories. Would you able to tell an interesting one that you recall?
Well, I've been asked questions like this before, and it's strange, really, when you look back and you say, well, what do you remember? And you'd think, well, you remember when you win the championship, or you remember a special goal when, you know, it was scored at Inonu or at Ali Samiyan. But I always bring this one, and it's, I think it was in not the first season, the beginning of the second season. and we're playing it in Inonu, and it's before the game. And in those days, also, players didn't go on the pitch to warm up before. You know, you forget these things. So the players just run out and referee blew the whistle away. But now so I'm on the pitch and with Riza, walking with Riza, and Ali Emich, my beloved friend, Turgeman, and there's a few supporters. So we come out the tunnel looking just on the left-hand side. There was a big banner going right down there, and it said, please go to your home, Gordon. This banner. And Riza, you know, Riza has a different personality to different players. Forget it, Roger. Forget it. You know? But it was there.
Please.
And Ali Emich, you know, I tell you the story. Ali Emich used to have this wonderful thing. Like sometimes you get the gazettes into the camp, and you'd see Milne, you see your name Milne. Well, automatically it's you know. So Ali, what does that say? No, nothing. You know, so to be critic or something. No, nothing. And so that was kind of, that stayed with me, because it's typical of football. It's typical of football trainers. If you're not doing well, then bye-bye. The people don't want you to be there. But if looking back now and looking back after that period, what happened after that, you would never believe really what was going to happen. So that always stays with me. You know, it's not in a nasty way, not in a bad way, but just as an example of, you know, it could have been a dream and nothing else. So.
Do you ever miss Turkey? If so, what do you miss the most?
Oh, everything. Well, I have three sons. Graham, my middle son, is married to Ayşe, Turkish girl, so we have Turkish in the family now. And we holiday there every year. We try and visit a couple of times a year. It's a second home to me, Turkey, and you know, I have strong affection for the country and the people. And before anything, before we won anything, before I had achieved anything with Beşiktaş, people always made me and my family so welcome. And that didn't change. You know, sometimes if you do something, then everybody wants to say this and say nice things. But from the day one, I never had, people were so good. And the attitude of the players I worked with was first class. Everybody tried to help me. I worked hard. I did work hard, and I demanded a lot, but they supported me. So I always felt this kind of good sport, nice feelings. Yeah.
Do you follow the progress of Beşiktaş right now? How do you find it in general?
It's difficult to follow the games here, as you know, in England. Yeah, so I've lost touch really a little bit. I don't know the players, but I'm watching the television now here. I don't know the players at Liverpool. You know, so you know the players change so much now. Just going back a little when we were talking about we had Walsh and Wilson and Ferdinand, you were allowed 3 Yabancı, and that was it. And people used to say, would you like more? And I always said, no, that's enough. And I believe he should have stayed that way, my personal view, particularly for Turkey, because Turkey had good players, produced good players themselves. But now Turkey's the same. You watch the game and there might be 2 Turkish players playing.
Yes, exactly.
You know, we watch Arsenal play Liverpool, no English players playing. You know, it can happen. But that today is international football, and we have to go with it. That's the way it was.
Yeah. Beşiktaş has always the pioneer with its young talent. What are your views on the current young talent in Beşiktaş Do you know Semih Kılıçsoy and what are your views on him?
Well, I only know that because of my dear friend Ali Guldigan, Ali Karabacak. He showed me the video of the boy playing, and he looks a special player. Yeah, he's young, but he looks to have the basics, and he looks physically strong, as well as having good ability. So it's just, you know, Yavash, just hope he gets handled properly and people don't get too carried away, because a lot of good young players have had publicity early in their career, and then all of a sudden they disappear. So I don't know the boy's character, but they say he's a good character, and but he has the raw material. So inshallah, let's hope he can do it. Yeah.
What do you think are the chances of Turkish national team in Euro 2024?
Well, the hardest thing is to get to the Euros. You know, there's countries have not qualified for it, so that's the most difficult thing. The last result was it against Austria? Was it? It was not a very good result.
It was
but
a very good result.
you know, this will be different. So if they can, you know, Turkey are capable of getting some good results. A little bit of the draw is always helpful, but in a Euro competition, you never know. You just hope they can all play to their capacity and they get a bit of luck during the tournament.
Okay.
I'll be watching.
Yeah, okay, that's great. What does Eski Dostlar song remind you of? Why don't we sing it together and reminisce about Süleyman Seba?
Well, the first time we sang that together was with Aydın and Ali and Can and Mum and Dad in Turkey, and it was a song that meant a lot to Başkan. And I don't understand the words fully, but the song in itself, I liked it, and it kind of the music kind of depicted Başkan. You could see that, as I say, I don't know the words, but you could see how that meant something to him, and it was typical of his image. So sometimes when the family sing that, it always reminds me of Başkan.
Ali Bey, if we can sing it, I think, huh? Yeah, let's start. Unutulmuş birer birer eski dostlar, eski dostlar, ne bir selam ne bir haber. Eski dostlar, eski dostlar, unutulmuş birer birer eski dostlar, eski dostlar, ne bir selam ne bir haber. Eski dostlar, eski dostlar. Hayal meyal düşler gibi, uçup giden kuşlar gibi, yosun tutan taşlar gibi. Eski dostlar, eski dostlar. Bravo.